here with me on Saskia Unreserved, Professor Kostas Papanicolas, the President of the Cyprus Institute, the CEO of the Cyprus Research and Educational Foundation, Professor Emeritus at the University of Athens, Greece, Adjunct Professor at the University of Illinois. He's also, you laugh, but it's a huge accomplishment, Advisor to the President of the Republic on Climate Change and the Presidential Special Envoy for Climate Change. And he's smiling here in front of me. He also holds PhD degrees in physics from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He served as a researcher and as a full professor at the University of Illinois, University of Athens. He directed the Institute of Accelerating Systems and Applications of Greece of the National Technical University of Athens and the Physics Laboratory of the university as well. He's chaired the Accreditation Council for Tertiary Education for the Republic of Cyprus and the committee that established the Department of Physical Sciences at the University of Cyprus. His key research is in the area of nuclear, particle and medical physics, energy policy and solar energy, and in educational policy, where he's published extensively. And I can tell you, having delved into it, that there are over 194 publications with thousands on thousands of citations and thousands of articles. He's a fellow of the American Physical Society, member of the European Academy of Sciences, member of the Silk Road Academy of Sciences in China, and the founding member of the Cyprus Academy of Sciences, Letters and the Arts. He's been awarded the Medal of Excellence for service to the Republic for his contributions to research and education in Cyprus, and ordained as the Commendatore dell'Ordine della Stella d'Italia by the President of Italy. Thank you so much for being here in the studio with me, Professor.
It's a real pleasure. Thanks.
Your research is really fascinating. Spect-angle interpolation based on deep learning methodologies, heat flux distribution for CSP applications, the economic assessment of a hybridized linear Fresnel collector supplying air conditioning and electricity for buildings. All papers which you've recently co-authored. The aim of today's interview is really to please explain the significance of your research to the overhearing audience in ways that they understand. So I'd like to begin with the use of photovoltaics to support the air conditioning demand, which is really exploding worldwide, and which by 2050, according to the IEA, the International Energy Agency, will account for more than 12% of the world's CO2 emissions.
Well, it's a very good question, especially very relevant for our region. Air conditioning demand will increase because temperatures and protracted heat waves are to arrive,
yes.
Or already, actually to be precise, have arrived,
right.
And they will intensify and be longer in duration as time goes on. That's a very robust prediction of climate modelers. How we're going to cope with, at least in areas like Cyprus where people can afford it, it will increase air conditioning demand. To give you a factoid, for every 2.5 degrees increase in temperature, we double the electricity demand for such use. So the demand on electricity will rise, and could be a vicious circle, because unless we drive this demand for conventional air conditioning through electricity, I'll talk about some other technologies, we require more electricity. If we don't do anything with renewables, we'll burn more oil and carbon to generate electricity to air condition will rise the temperature more. A vicious circle.
Yeah, vicious circle.
It's a vicious circle. So we have to break it. We have to find new technologies. And unfortunately, photovoltaics is part of the solution, is not the solution. Why? The prediction, it actually happened last summer, that most of us had to have air conditioning basically for 4 months every night.
Yes, it was very challenging summer. It was a challenging summer.
I have bad news for that. If you think that was bad, wait 40 years. This will be, the prediction is that if we don't do anything, this summer hot periods will be the coolest periods in summers 40 years from now. So it looks really, it's going to get worse. Now, going back to photovoltaics, as we all know, photovoltaics don't work in the evening. So what do? We turn off the air conditioning in the evening. So there is the dilemma. Well, either we burn oil during the evening, which is not a very good idea, or coal or natural gas, all generating more greenhouse gases, or we have to find other technologies. One technology is to store electricity, but batteries are very expensive. We cannot store electricity for that.
Is that what you call embedded storage?
Storage.
Yeah,
exactly.
to an absorption chiller, as opposed to batteries.
Yes, that's another technology. It's not photovoltaics.
Oh, okay.
It's a very old technology, actually. Was back to 19th century. Giants of science have toyed with the idea. Actually, Albert Einstein has a patent on it. And in old days, in the third world, actually today, but also in Cyprus, in the old days, people had refrigerators where there was no electricity, running on propane. I don't know if you have seen those.
Yes.
So how does it work? Somehow you burn propane, you make heat to cool. Yes, there is that. That's the technology, the roots of it. So the simple idea is, instead of burning propane, you solar heat, not electricity. So it's not photovoltaics. You generate heat. Well, we know the sun is very efficient to generate heat.
Yes.
That's what we're trying to cool anyway. So you store the heat. It's very easy to store heat, far easier than to store electricity.
Yes.
And use that heat, like the old refrigerators, well, an air conditioner is a refrigerator, to cool our houses. So it's an alternative technology. It's not...
is that optimal?
For air conditioning, is not optimized yet for small houses. It's optimal and has been there. It's even commercialized. These chillers do exist. You can buy them from Japan, basically, for big units, like big complexes, not individual apartments, like complex of apartments, hospitals, schools. Their capacity is bigger than to be economical than a single unit. It's a new technology to deal with it.
If we go to photovoltaics, it seems that regionally thermal comfort needs to be tackled by solar technology.
Thermal is the easiest. Thermal, you don't need photovoltaics again. Thermal, think about it. What does the sun do? Generates heat.
Yes.
The solar radiation, it converts all the time to heat. That's why the planet is warming. So if we capture that of the heat, which is very easy, very efficient, efficiency of photovoltaics is 10%, 12%. Converting solar radiation to heat is 90%. So why don't we use this heat to heat our homes?
Yes, and
it's that simple.
And the answer is?
We should.
Why aren't we? And
well,
now that you brought it up, why have we only got a maximum of 4.5 kilowatts of photovoltaics allowed on a home?
There is so much photovoltaics you can absorb in the system. It's there is a lot of simplistic concepts about photovoltaics. Photovoltaics are great, but let me give you an example.
Yes.
You have photovoltaics running. If you rely too much on them, like wind is the same story.
Yes.
And then clouds come over.
Then
The efficiency drops.
Right.
What if you don't have and clouds come and go? So if your system relies up down every time, or like wind turbines, if the wind blows or doesn't blow, and you have too much of it in your grid, it will lead to blackout because the demand will be far bigger than the supply. The grid gets unstable, will lead to instabilities, blackouts. So there is so much of intermediate renewables that can be injected before you destabilize the system. That's why there are limits of how much intermittent renewable sources, which the most notorious is wind, which is very whimsical. You may need it in August when the sun is blazing, it doesn't blow, but it may blow really good at 3 a.m. in April where you don't need it. So you cannot program, next April it's totally unpredictable.
Right.
On a long photovoltaics is more predictable. It won't be sun during the night. We know about that, so we have to deal with the evening hours in a different way. But during the day, the cloud modulates it a lot. The cloud, and therefore putting renewables that are intermittent to above a given level leads to instabilities. That's why people are saying, why don't we go all the way for photovoltaic?
Yes,
it's obvious if you think about it. Yeah.
Hybridization, is that the key?
Well, it depends how hybridization, how you understand hybridization.
I see that the Cyprus Institute has an LFR collector supplying heating and cooling to your adjacent Novel Technologies Laboratory building since July of 2016. What has the research revealed as far as these standby periods are concerned?
It works fine. It's a combination of solar thermal.
Yes.
That's what. So heat is wonderful, works all the time.
Right.
Cooling is less efficient and maybe supplemented by as needed because it's done through these chillers that are, the technology is fast evolving.
Yes.
So heat it's very easy. And we have also photovoltaics for power. So it's a combination feeding in, and depending on how we use it, we may have surplus electricity, then we send it back to the grid. We may have excess heat, then we stop running the heaters, and the same with cooling. Because we store heat, we can air condition during the evening as well. And of course we store heat, we can heat during the evening.
Right.
So the experiment is working wonderful because also the building it's a very efficient building.
This is what I also wanted to bring up.
That's necessary too. You don't air condition and keep the door open. Well, that's the extreme. But if your building is not well insulated, it's the same thing. So the first thing and the least expensive is insulate. Minimize the demand. Don't rely only on the supply, minimize the demand. It will be more comfortable anyway because the temperature will not fluctuate, and we also is more economical. So it's a combination.
What are you would you advise, for example, in a building like this? We have a studio here. You can see we've got 2 new windows, double insulation there, so
yes,
that's okay.
I see this, yes.
The air conditioner, I'm told, has to stay on 24 hours a day.
Why?
Because it gets too warm in here.
Too much electronic equipment. Yes.
Quite a lot, especially in the summer. In the winter we need heating. But generally, the entire building, we don't have photovoltaics. We've got a huge empty space where we could actually put something. How can government offices like ours and buildings be improved, especially when buildings such as ours are actually supposed to be raised to the ground?
Well,
they've been deemed unhealthy.
Yes,
buildings.
Rick is not the is not the example, I'm afraid, of how buildings should be constructed or be energy efficient. So, unfortunately, most of the building stock in not only Cyprus, in most of the world actually, is totally inadequate.
Inadequate.
It's wasteful. It's uncomfortable at the end.
Unhealthy. Unhealthy.
Yes. So, what do? It's a growing demand worldwide, and actually the forecast is that there will not be enough experts to refurbish with new external skins to the buildings. There are technologies to retrofit instead of demolishing, although in certain cases probably is not a bad idea, to make them efficient, which is the way to go. After you make them efficient, because it's a lot.
Is it financially viable to make a building?
It's the most viable way in the long term. Of course, for personal households, the problem is that you have to put the money up front and then it will pay off in 7-10 years, whatever. So there must be a government policy, so they spread out the payment, because most households, it may be more efficient to pay it up front, but if you don't have it, well, you pay more year by year.
I mean, this is what's happened with the photovoltaics, isn't it? So
photovoltaics is not the solution for everything. Photovoltaics actually, yes, we should put them on the roof. Yes, we should have parks. It's not, as I said, it's not the solution for everything.
Insulation.
There is not one solution to this problem.
No.
It will be a basket of solutions. Yes.
The Cyprus Institute, or rather you actually conducted with Stella Dimitriou, Ioanna Kyprianou, Despina Sergidis in April of 2020. You wrote about a new approach in the refurbishment of office buildings using a public office building as a case study in Limassol.
Yes.
And I wanted to know how did you go about that case study?
Well, there are many case studies. This is I'm impressed. You researched very well.
It's very interesting work that you've written.
It was part of a European project about refurbishing old buildings and see how much. I mean, it's different theorizing, and it's different. So we inserted monitors everywhere. We refurbished, and we measured before and after. And yes. It validated what I'm saying, that yes, refurbishing can be done. It can be done efficiently, and the conclusion is what I said. The barrier is not we do have the technologies. It is getting better. It can be done.
Right.
In many countries, and I suspect that part of it exists also in Cyprus. And it will increase. There will be programs from the government that they either subsidize a good part of it, or they subsidize and provide a loan so you can move ahead. I know there is a similar program in Cyprus to redo the building to make it energy efficient, and they absorb, in a way, spreading the cost over several years, or subsidize for people who cannot afford it to make their homes more efficient. Is I want to stress, this is solution, the preferred solution, number one. Minimize the demand. Don't always think about more power to climatize and use electricity in inefficient ways. Cyprus homes are horrible, are really, and especially for air conditioning. For heat, in the winter, you feel it. Because
so many air conditioning units are being used for heating as well.
Yes,
we've got people using wood, which is really dangerous.
It's not good. Air conditioning is it's a solution. It's not the best. It's far better than burning wood. But
yet so many people are cutting down trees to burn wood. You see stockpiles of people with wood.
Well, it's not if it's regulated. There is wood stock that can be used. That's not the issue. If it's managing the forest properly,
yes,
there is excess of wood. It's polluting, so it's bad for the health. And our studies at the institute show that Cyprus, we think we have clean air. We don't really in the cities. I mean, there was a study about a year ago which got a lot of publicity that were really...
Is that with Professor Saskia?
With Professor Saskia, exactly.
Yeah.
It was front page news. That corresponds to, if I remember,
yes,
several thousands of deaths because of pollution. So it's polluting.
Yes.
That's it generates greenhouse gases. So it's not destroying necessarily the woods if the woods are properly managed.
Right.
But it's not a good solution. There are, and I was going to make the point. It's the Cyprus and the Middle East problem is basically where the waste is done is in the summer, because I was going to say that in the winter, if you have a crack on the door, you'll feel the cold air coming in.
Yes.
In the summer, you air condition the house, you don't feel the hot air getting in. You just let the cold air leak like a sieve out of the house, pay more and more electricity, but you don't feel it like this door is I'm feeling cold. And the inefficiency, because of the building stock leaking, being poorly insulated in the summer, is really costing us tremendous amount of electricity, polluting, generating greenhouse gases, again because of inefficient way that these units were built for the last 100 years.
What about the newer buildings, though, and the regulations that need to be followed in order to have more efficient buildings? Are they actually being followed?
Oh yes, generally these standards by the European Union.
Yes.
Now it's a European Union law that they have to adhere to certain standards. They are rated and measured.
Yes.
Generally, I have not heard that. I mean, of course, there will be here and there shortcuts. It can be monitored. It's very easy to measure a building, how much it leaks these days with thermal imaging and so on. So if somebody wants to go and measure it, and they should periodically, it's there, and is not good for the owner or the contractor to try to cheat on that. It doesn't save much money in the construction.
And that's a long-term
waste. Yeah. Yes.
You're an academic. You're president of the Cyprus Institute, and for those who may have just tuned in, just a reminder that I'm speaking to Professor Kostas Papanicolas from the Cyprus Institute on climate change. And I just wonder, does the government actually listen to you and to your academic advice? Because often we don't see a correlation between what the science is showing and what you're saying and what they're actually doing.
Generally, not only the Cyprus government, it's all
many governments.
Many
let's
governments.
say. Okay.
Yes.
I picked on Cyprus because we're here.
Yeah, but it's always good to put it in context.
Yes.
We're part of the European Union.
Yes.
We're in a neighborhood. So is Cyprus governments historically, not this particular one, or any better or worse, let's say, than the average European? I would say we're average. We're not nowhere as good as Scandinavians, who are really a model in
Why aren't we as good as the Scandinavians? Is it because we're I don't know, we're from the Mediterranean, we have to be like that?
No.
I asked because at the summit that you had at the second International Conference on Climate Change at the Aphrodite Hills in October, and we heard Professor Jeffrey Sachs, the president of the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network, say there was a huge gap between what needs to be done about climate change in the region and the capacities of governments to do it. And he said that when governments are run by amateurs and the hard decisions need to stem climate change, makes re-election difficult. He was very forthright, and he was very, very strict. Needless to say, government officials, I think, were not there to hear it because it was towards the end of the conference. But I think the word got around.
Well, actually, there was, following the end of the conference, there was, to the credit of the president, he hosted a dinner at the presidential palace.
Yes.
Where keynote speakers, keynote participants attended, including Jeffrey Sachs, and he took the microphone and said it loud and clear. And many ministers and the president were there.
What was the reaction? Because he's quite forthright.
The reaction. Let's get the message right first. I mean, I have the highest respect for Jeffrey Sachs. Actually, he's a personal friend I know for 25 years. He's one of the leading economists of the world. When Jeffrey speaks, people listen. Yes. His message is very interesting, Warren, and there is a very interesting message. Don't blame, although this is not the way he said, don't blame only the governments, blame the electorate too.
Bravo. I'm glad that you've said that.
So we say, why doesn't the government do it? Because we don't ask them to do it. Yes. We don't vote for those that adhere to science.
Yes.
And surprisingly, as the COVID has shown, the public, and not only in Cyprus, it's in the United States, it's in Germany, it's in many countries, are not so keen to follow scientific advice. The public, the politicians, let's be realistic.
Yes.
They have number one concern, get re-elected. Second concern, maybe the climate. Those very few that reverse the order are out of business. So why the public is not demanding that we do this? So it's very interesting the way he words it, yes. But the message there is that it's important that not only we convince the politicians, even more important is convince the public as scientists, because if the public demands it, all politicians will align.
Why do you believe the public are not listening to scientific evidence? Why do you think that there's so much consternation? Do you think that this is as a result of social media and the ease with which bad news is actually spread, and how easy it is just to sit behind and debate behind a computer screen?
Well, this is a very, very interesting question. We can argue for hours. Has been debated for decades now. It's not new. Actually, and the National Science Foundation in the United States, on their website, they track since the 50s non-scientific beliefs that I don't know, from heresies to
Yes.
witchcraft to you name it.
Yes.
They have monitored that. It's very interesting how these beliefs evolve.
Yes.
Surprisingly, they are very constant for the last 70 or whatever they have been following years. In this, what would you guess is the fraction of population that, for example, follows their horoscope to make important decisions,
Yes.
or they believe in non-vaccination or whatever, totally non-scientific approaches to solving a problem. What would be your guess in United States?
I think it's about 43%.
Well, very well. You have studied it apparently. Yes.
I did.
Okay. There was a Pew Foundation study about 2 years ago of European.
Yes.
Probably you're aware of that.
The percentage is high, and
It's very high,
and I find that
especially
alarming.
in Cyprus, Greece. We are doing very badly,
Yes.
According to the Pew Foundation. Doing only worse than I believe Georgia and some few other countries in Eastern Europe. Yes.
How are we going to reverse that? Do you think that academics have some role to play because you like to sit and discuss your findings? You want to analyze, you want to make graphs, and you want to sit there and you want to get on with that. And
well, that's our job.
You don't have enough contact maybe with the public to explain your findings to them, and some professors even call them academic or media professors, that they spend more time in front of the media than
it's
doing
a different
research.
job. The one is outreach and education,
Yes.
which is not necessarily, it's related, it's not the same as doing research.
Yes.
Actually, often they compete. Either you disseminate,
Yes.
or you generate new knowledge. Not easy to do both.
No.
Yes, you imply something that is absolutely correct. What is the solution? Quality education, quality education, quality education. Our education doesn't mean formal education in a classroom. Education and outreach, I mean it. What you are doing right now is educating, bringing the issue, debating. The mass media
Yes.
play increasingly dominant role in doing this, and they're not doing a good job either. Our schools are not doing a good job. So the social media, unfortunately, do a good job for those that are already convinced.
Yes.
And because there are these media bubbles, you can isolate yourself and hear what you want to hear. We have segmented. There are big chunks of society that the messages don't get there because they select to hear what they want to hear.
That's very interesting that you said that, because a BBC report just came out this morning.
Oh, okay.
And you see how spot on you are. And they said exactly that for example, on the topic of the vaccination or booster vaccinations, if someone is vaccinated and they're trying to convince the non-vaccinated to go, if there's somebody who's just bordering on whether he should or shouldn't go, the vaccinated person who's actually being very dogmatic in his approach towards the other person will actually chase him away, whereas he could have gone with a more gentle approach, and it would have been actually more inclusive.
It's part of the art of outreach.
Yes.
It's always, if scientists are not very good at that, but of course in general, there are specialists, and it takes a cooperation. Social scientists are very important in this,
Yes.
to teach the hard discipline scientists how to communicate,
Yes.
because some of them get annoyed
Yes.
very quickly. How can you not see this? It's
Yes.
obvious. Well, if it was obvious, you shouldn't be talking to this person. Anyway, the reason that there are these persons that are in as you say, borderline, is because they have not been convinced. So the media, all sorts of communication strategies have to be employed in the right way. And most societies, I don't know actually, some are doing it better, some are doing it not so good. It's a challenge. So it's not the politicians' mistake, not that they don't have their own issues,
It's a
but
combination.
it's a broader, far broader issue about the society accepting rational solutions that will make our lives much better, more comfortable, save the planet. It's a far broader issue where we all have our role to play, from government to academia to broadcasting, press, etc. All these sectors. Yes.
If we look at funding, is there sufficient funding for research? And I'm especially thinking now about the Green Fund, which has apparently not been hasn't been approved.
I'm not
The
sure.
the Green Fund, which says that green taxes taken, for example, from fuel, is not being used towards the improvement of climate change. Is that accurate or is it not accurate? So, for
I
example,
prefer your earlier question because this is too specific. Is there enough money for research?
all right.
Regardless of the source, because we
Okay.
are focusing now on a specific.
I'm saying about sources. I'm saying, for example, about supermarket bags. The taxes that go from there. Where does all this money go? It should be going towards a green fund, and the green fund then should be used towards mitigating climate change. And I'm wondering if that is actually being done, or if
You're talking about Cyprus or
yes,
Europe?
Cyprus.
Uh,
Because we seem to be paying a lot of fines.
we pay a lot of fines to the European Union,
Yes.
and it's going to get much worse
And now, as a scientific advisor to the president, when you
on
say
climate change.
on climate change, and he knows that he's paying fines. He's paying fines because we're not adhering to the standards. What is his response, and how is it that something isn't being done about that?
Well, actually, there is a lot of discussion on what to do about that, because it's obvious. No government wants to pay taxes, okay? No matter how bad the government is or good, nobody wants
They
to.
don't want to pay.
Of course. So they are discussing a problem. I know it's about to be announced.
Oh, all right.
There is a discussion. It's being that's an issue that is being discussed. One solution, and something like that, I suspect we'll hear soon, is a program where anybody who reduces the carbon emissions take the carbon equivalent,
Yes.
that following the EU formula, you can monetize it. So much money. So I retrofit my factory
Okay.
to reduce that. That corresponds to a fine that we would have paid. So the program is to, instead of paying the fine to the EU,
Sell off your carbon.
give it back to the enterprise unit, whatever economic unit that saved that. That sounds like a good policy. I hope to see it soon, or something like that. It's so obvious they should have been there already.
Yes.
And this, for example, is a measure that it's a no-brainer. How could anybody object to that? Why don't we have it already?
Yes.
So, but I know it's being discussed. So
right.
the question: why does it take us so long?
Yeah, it's so long.
Well, I wish I knew. I don't have an answer
Right.
to you.
This
Yes.
is part.
You are absolutely right.
Part of politics. Okay, so going back to the funding for research, do you have enough? Because
No.
you're the key
No.
to the solutions.
You mean science
Science is
and
key.
technology? Yes. Well, it's a paradox.
All right.
It's a global paradox. Everybody admires those that have done it, and those that have not done it, while they admire them, they don't do it.
Okay.
So you see somebody who's doing something and you say, I want to be like them, and that we know how to do it, and yet we are not willing to pay for it. I'll give you an example. Which are typically the countries that take the advanced European countries? Scandinavia and Germany, so they are Finland, I say excellent example. Israel, they are spending somewhere between 4 and 7% of their their budget on research and development. And of course they have far higher standard of living. They are far more responsible with the environment. Israel is now the champion of innovation. They're spending something 7 to 8%. You know how much we're spending?
That I don't know.
Very close to 1%.
All right. So
but are we willing to spend that? Apparently not. We have seen no government during these facts are not new. No government has put a coherent program to increase this. They all say they will do it.
But I mean, we just heard from Mr. Petridis that it was a green budget. That he's put together a green budget that he presented to
But
Parliament.
that's not research. Research and green is not the same.
No, but
Very different.
Shouldn't some of that money be going
That's a
towards
different-
research?
That research is not green. It's
All right, I use the term green as in environmental studies.
you can have no. This is not what they mean by green budget. Not only Cyprus, worldwide, you can have a green program and have zero money for research. They're two different things.
All right.
Actually, putting money in research doesn't make you green now. You are putting in
For the
motion
future.
things that may pay in 5-10 years. If you plant trees, that's green. Let's say we allocate 5% of our budget to plant trees. Okay, you say, oh, I'm greening Cyprus. Correct. Are you increasing research? No. Not the same thing.
So we don't have enough for research. Has that been addressed?
It's being addressed. It's there is slight increase. Of course, the counter argument is that you cannot increase this abruptly because you'll start funding nonsense. There is not enough capacity to do quality research. You need researchers to do quality research. You need institutions. You need laboratories. If you just dump a lot of money on non-existent.
But that's what happened in the cultural sector. So
well, it happens in all sectors. If you throw money at the problem, it doesn't work. It just generates garbage. It needs a long term, meaning with a planning of 10-20 years to get there. You cannot go from where we are now to be like Finland by just saying, but it takes a really good plan.
But is the plan actually there? When you look at the Green Deal and you see, the aspects on climate, on the environment and oceans, research and innovation, industry, agriculture, energy, transport, all the sectors have been covered there in a plan.
Are they?
Yes. Have they been actually, are they starting to be implemented?
Yes, there is motion in the right direction. This is undeniable. There is good motion in the right direction. Is it adequate?
It's not adequate for climate change.
It's not adequate for anything, in my view. It could go faster. We have units that are of excellent quality. Cyprus has documented with their successes at EU high quality research community. They could absorb more. They are not limited. We are not limited in what I was saying before, that we'll start producing, distribute too much money, so at the end you waste money.
Yes.
And we should invest in better infrastructures, and also high quality researchers, and not necessarily Cypriots. We are in the European Union. Their research potential is global now. You go to United States, you go to the top universities, and believe me, there are no shortage of Americans. Half of their personnel or more. You go to MIT, number one institution now, ranked number one for the last 4 years, the mecca of technology. More than half of their research professors are non-Americans. Why? Because they select the best in the world. They don't care. We go to Switzerland, the same thing.
Yes.
So why not do it in Cyprus? What we're interested is what we produce, not that somebody must have been born in Cyprus.
Yes,
this
or in Greece.
Or whatever. Switzerland is doing the same.
Yes.
Top universities now in Germany are doing it. United States is light years ahead.
On the national broadcaster, I fight to have an English program. 2 hours a day, so
but it's clear.
It's imperative.
If we want to compete with these institutions, well, they're doing it this way.
Yes. That's why I find your collaborations with Max Planck, for example, and with all these wonderful institutes so refreshing, because whenever you have anything to say, or you present new papers, or you have new research, it's of course of great interest.
Because we have at the Cyprus Institute one criterion: excellence.
Excellence. It shows.
Excellence, excellence. I don't care if this excellence, when you're doing climate research, it doesn't matter if they speak German, French, English, whatever.
Yes.
It's the outcome that matters for the institute. Is the outcome that at the end matters for the Cyprus society.
Yes.
Are they getting? Is the government or the EU getting the best quality out of the investment they make? And we have figures to talk about it. So let's focus on excellence and results, not on other parameters.
I want to touch just briefly on water sources, because our high temperatures, the rainfall scarcity, increased demand from tourists, from locals, from the agricultural sectors. We've looked at desalination plants, but I'm wondering about the potential to increase fossil fuel dependence, the increase of greenhouse gas emissions, and how they're exacerbating climate change.
It's true, desalination plants, as they are now, are very energy demanding. 5% of the electricity budget of Cyprus, something like that, goes to desalination plants. And how, therefore, we burn fossil fuels
Yes.
to make water. and a lot of it. Also, brine discharge is an issue.
Yes.
The technologies do exist. There is how does nature make water? Well, it evaporates the oceans.
Yes, and then we've got condensation.
And rains nice water.
Yes.
How is done that? Directly without electricity. It's done by solar heat. So there is plenty of sun in Cyprus, and actually this is a nice coincidence. The places where need water most are very rich in solar energy.
Yes.
So there are technologies, and certainly it's well understood now, and it will be heavily promoted internationally, have desalination driven by renewable energy sources, mostly solar. So evaporate or use similar technologies, the water through direct solar energy, not going through electricity, and produce.
We're not doing that though, are we? And why not?
The technology is not as commercial as it is the reverse osmosis, which is the one used internationally and in Cyprus. There is technology, especially in the Gulf region, where they desalinate by burning, because they have a lot of oil there.
Yes.
So a lot of, as you know, in the Gulf, they plan everything in the desert,
yes.
And they just burn oil like there is no end to it, to desalinate. There is no reason, and actually we're studying this technology. You should come and visit our solar facility near Pentagon.
That will be fascinating.
Where we are studying these technologies.
Yes.
We're producing desalination, desalinated water with direct solar energy.
Yes.
And we're not the only ones. It's a mainstream research right now. We have it in Cyprus, it's there, and where basically it's very simple. With the concept is very simple. The technology is rather complicated because you want to make it efficient. Is basically you heat the water with the sun, evaporates, condensated, and get water. Also, there is technology that we are also looking at where it's called zero brine discharge. Basically, you solidify the salt and you don't throw it back to the sea. So it's called zero liquid discharge, and that's also a mainstream research, and that's the future. So you desalinate with renewables, and you don't discharge the brine into the sea because
that waste chemicals accumulate and
well, not waste chemicals, it's salt.
Yes.
It's basically, if you're careful, it's actually commercially people are interested in getting this solid waste because salt basically out of the sea, but it also has minerals, can be processed, so this is the way it will be in the future. The sooner we do it, the better.
Is it possible to adapt the technology from what we have at the moment to solar technology?
Yes and no. The technology we have now, no, it cannot use this technology, but it can be driven instead of by generating electricity in the conventional way by burning fossil fuels through renewables. There are technical issues because again, renewables like wind and photovoltaics are intermittent,
yes.
And these factories, for reasons that have to do with the way this technology operates, the so-called reverse osmosis, which use membrane to do that, they need to be working 24 hours a day. You cannot say, I'll work during the day and not during the evening. You cannot do that.
Right.
So it has, but to a large degree, and if we're willing to bear the cost they can. I'll make a point actually. How many do you think of the public is willing to pay the higher electricity bill like we are paying now for no good reason, because of the fluctuation of the market, to subsidize renewables, renewable penetration in the way?
I think that most of the
Very
public,
few.
no, I think most of them would be willing. I think what they're not willing to do is to pay for fines and for yes, to pay fines, and that's basically
They're right.
what we're
They're right.
and that upsets. Well, it definitely upsets me. And
You are absolutely right.
But I wouldn't mind paying if it's going into the right cause. But there seems to be a lot of corruption and a lot of nepotism in how these things are put together. And I think that there needs to be a far more open and transparent way of operating.
I will agree with you with a comment. Societies that have corruption and nepotism is because the public accepts it. I believe we have a tendency, I'm not advocating corruption or nepotism, but why certain societies don't have it is because the public does not tolerate it.
Yes.
And so
Because it's in small societies, it's very easy to permeate it, and it needs a very strong leadership, I think, to stop corruption.
why do we always expect the leadership to do it and not the people to do it? Why don't we say, I mean, we'll have...
You're completely correct.
Hegel,
It has to
Hegel
yes.
200 years ago said societies get the leadership they deserve. Think about it.
Yes, also a very valid point. Very valid point. So, I want to move on to the region. Now, we saw with the conference that you're going to have a regional action plan in February of 2022. Cyprus is going to host a summit to launch a 10-year plan. Can you tell us about what's going to happen?
Yeah, this is the government initiative on climate change for the region. It has several stages. The first stage that the Cyprus Institute was leading, it's basically over. Provide the scientific background, the technological studies that can point to solutions, propose a policies that can mitigate or adapt to climate change. That has been done. This was the topic of the conference.
Yes.
It was a big success, as everybody, as we have seen,
Yes.
assessed, not us. And now we move into the implementation phase. There will be two ministerial meetings, one in February and one in early June, led by the Ministry of Environment, and where to try to bridge the scientific and technological findings into policy and action plan. So this is the next 6 months. The first meeting will be on February, where the ministers will agree on a rough agenda to be fleshed out in the intervening time till June, will be finalized, and then this will be passed to the heads of state for a meeting in October 2022 to agree on the plan.
Right.
So that's the sequence, and by the end of 2022 a plan should be in place and start implementation measures.
Do you think you're going to be able to get all our regional partners on board?
No.
Because there
No.
seems to be that politics overrides.
Yeah, this is
climate
not an
change.
easy region to
No,
begin with.
no.
It's
It's very
totally-
volatile, as we saw.
Well, volatile is a kind word. It's very inhomogeneous, ridden with conflicts.
Yes.
Different types of economies. From it couldn't be more diverse culturally, technologically, economically. It's a very diverse region, full of problems. Okay.
Does that make it all far more challenging?
Yes, it makes it far more challenging. That's an understatement. It makes it even trying to take this challenge on looks.
Is it too big? Should it have maybe been done in bite size?
No, no. There is a natural scale to it. Is not if you try to fragment it, it will not work. The concept that we're discussing is that, which I advocate strongly, is this is not the European Union. This is not Benelux. It's a problem with all these problems. So have a framework which within you will have cluster of these states to do this, cluster of the, so it will be totally voluntary. I want to join the desalination initiative. I want to join the biodiversity initiative. I want to join the build environment initiative. So there will be.
Who is leading?
So that in a way, and just to
Yes.
to explain how it works, because this will answer that question. Also, it happens in the European Union. Take the euro. You don't have to adapt to the euro to be a part of the European Union,
No.
right?
Yes.
So it's a clustering there.
Yes. Yes.
Now they're discussing other clustering, maybe when it comes to defense within the European Union. So the having a region that has agreed to a framework doesn't necessarily mean they agree on every measure. So much more so in a inhomogeneous region like our own. Okay, so these initiatives, who is going to be leading what initiative? This will be a question for the ministers and the leaders of the state. Who wants to lead desalination? Or they will come and propose, I want to lead the center that will coordinate how to manage fires. Clearly, forest fires, we don't expect that will be led by Saudi Arabia. No. It's likely to be led by somebody who has forests. Desalination clearly will not be led by a country that doesn't need have the pressure right now. On and on. So that's the way we are trying to envision this framework. So it will have all these thrusts led by consortia, smaller, not necessarily everybody, and with overlaps, and measure. We need better data. Somebody has to coordinate monitoring stations to understand what goes on. So you can imagine clustering of thrusts where not everybody of these countries is involved. I expect that there will be very few that everybody is involved, if any.
Yes.
But I can see that there will be these initiatives within the broad framework that overlap. You can go in and out as your national leads indicate, and that will be a tremendous success if we get that far.
It's been an honor and a privilege to have you here in the studio. Thank you so much for all your input. Do you have a last message for the general public who are sitting at home thinking, well, it's raining and we don't need to worry about the water. We can put the heating on. We can. What can they do?
Well, it's deceiving to tell that remember next summer or in the
Wait
next few
until
years.
Friday when it's rained for 4 days, you know.
Yeah, right. But
and the dams are still empty, and the concept hasn't yet reached home that, you know, you cannot water the pavement.
yes.
It's my pet thing. I can't stand
so
it.
I have two messages. A, we're all in it together. The media, you are doing a wonderful job by doing this, because
Thank you. It wouldn't be if you didn't come, so thank you for
no,
coming.
but this is the cooperation. We may have the content. You are the voice. You are the tremendous role. The media, I cannot. I think is number one, because you provide the connection. The public, I insist, and it was obvious throughout our discussion, that don't blame everything on the politicians. We, the public, now I'm talking as a citizen,
Yes.
it's our responsibility to make the politicians do what we want. Let's not be passive. Oh, we don't have the right leader. Oh, we don't have this. We'll demand and we'll get it. And there is no government can resist a popular, of course, if it's authoritarian. I'm talking about democratic societies,
Yes.
that can resist the pressure of a public. So that's the long-term solution. We citizens, we need
Active citizens.
Yes, we need active citizens, not passive citizens waiting for the benevolent, visionary leader who is going to sacrifice his or her career in order to push measures that are not in demand.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
It has been real pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Professor Kostas Papanicolas, President of the Cyprus Institute, CEO of Cyprus Research Educational Foundation, and advisor to the President on climate change, and the Presidential Special Envoy for Climate Change. Time check, it's gone to 28 minutes to 2, and we are going to listen now to the second and third movements of the Rodrigo Concierto de Aranjuez with the Academy of St. Martin in the Fields and Pepe Romero, with a reminder once again of the concert for 2 guitars coming up from the Pharos Arts Foundation on the 16th of December. Nothing nicer to do than sit in a super atmosphere and listen to a wonderful concert at the Shoe Factory. Thank you so much for watching.